Welcome to our channel where we delve deep into the unsettling truths of history. Today, we embark on a journey through the shadows of Florida's past, exploring the disturbing aspects that have been deliberately erased from the annals of time. Join us as we uncover the buried narratives, shed light on forgotten atrocities, and confront the uncomfortable realities that history textbooks often fail to acknowledge. Prepare to be challenged, enlightened, and empowered as we confront the dark chapters of Black history that Florida attempted to erase. Have you ever heard about the crazy story that some folks say happened back in the 19th century? It's about Black kids being used as bait for alligators. Yeah, I know, it sounds wild, right? But some people swear it's true. Let's dive into this story and see what's what. So, way back when, after the Civil War, things were pretty rough for Black folks in America. Racial tensions were high, and African Americans faced a lot of discrimination and violence. Now, in the Deep South, where swamps and marshes were everywhere, there's this story that started going around. The story goes like this. In those swampy areas, some folks supposedly used Black children as bait to attract alligators. Can you believe it? They'd dangle these poor kids over the water, hoping to lure in those big, scary gators. It's a chilling thought, isn't it? Now let's break down this story a bit. What's at the heart of it? Well, it's not just about alligators and children. It's about something much deeper: racism. See, back then, Black people were seen as inferior by a lot of folks. Some people thought it was okay to treat them horribly, like they weren't even human. And that's where this story comes in. By saying that Black kids were used as alligator bait, it's like they're saying Black lives didn't matter, that they were worth less than nothing. It's a sad and cruel idea, but unfortunately, it's something that some people believe. But here's the thing. When we look closer at this story, we start to see holes in it. Sure, terrible things were happening to Black people back then. There's no denying that. But using kids as alligator bait? That's a whole other level of awful. Historians have looked into this story, searching through old newspapers, court documents, and personal accounts from that time. And guess what? They couldn't find any solid evidence to back it up. It's like trying to catch a ghost. You hear about it, but you can't find it. So why did this story spread in the first place? Well, think about it. Back then, people loved a good scary story. And what's scarier than the idea of innocent children being fed to ferocious alligators? It's like something out of a horror movie. Plus, spreading stories like this was a way to keep Black people down. By making them seem less than human, it was easier to justify treating them badly. It's messed up, but that's how things were back then. Nowadays, we know better. We know that every person, regardless of their race, deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. Stories like the one about alligator baiting might seem like they're from a different world, but they're a reminder of how far we've come and how far we still have to go. So the next time you hear a crazy story from the past, take a moment to think about it. Is it true, or is it just another way to spread fear and hatred? By asking questions and seeking the truth, we can learn from the past and work towards a better future for everyone. Be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you are enjoying the content. So, remember that story we were talking about earlier, about Black kids supposedly being used as bait for alligators back in the 19th century? Well, believe it or not, that tale isn't too far off from what's happening right now in Florida. Yeah, it's crazy how history seems to repeat itself sometimes. So check this out. The NAACP, that's the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, recently came out with a pretty serious warning for Black folks planning to travel to Florida. They're saying, hey, watch out, Florida might not be the safest place for us right now. Now, you might be wondering, why would the NAACP issue a travel advisory for Florida? Well, it all boils down to some stuff that's been going on there lately. See, the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, has been making some pretty bold moves, and not in a good way. The NAACP is saying that Governor DeSantis is trying to erase Black history and shut down diversity programs in schools. Imagine that. They're even comparing the situation in Florida to places experiencing war or natural disasters. That's how serious they think it is. It's like Florida has become a battleground for inclusion and diversity. DeSantis is cutting funding for programs that celebrate different cultures and histories, and he's even blocking new classes, like one about African American studies in high schools. He calls it all woke indoctrination, whatever that means. But here's the thing. When you start messing with education and trying to erase parts of history, you're not just hurting Black folks. you're hurting everyone. History teaches us where we come from and how we got here. It's like trying to build a house without knowing the foundation. It just won't work. And it's not just about the past. By ignoring or downplaying the struggles of Black people, we're letting ourselves off the hook for the work that still needs to be done. We owe a lot to Black Americans, and we can't just sweep their contributions and their pain under the rug. But you know how it goes. Whenever someone tries to talk about reparations or making things right, there are always people ready to shut it down. They say it's too hard or not necessary. But that's just another way of saying they don't want to face the truth. Now here's where things get messed up. Instead of taking the NAACP's warning seriously, some folks are just making jokes about it. Like this guy on a podcast who thought it was funny to make racist comments about Black people's hair. Can you believe that? It's not just about bad jokes, though. It's about what those jokes represent. It's about a culture where it's okay to belittle and demean people because of their race. And it's about a system that's designed to keep certain people in power while keeping others down. So yeah, when we hear stories like the one about Black kids and alligators, it's easy to think, that's history. We're better than that now. But the truth is, we're still fighting the same battles, just in different ways. And until we all stand up and say, enough is enough, things won't change. So let's keep talking about it. Let's keep fighting for what's right. And let's make sure history doesn't repeat itself. Not now, not ever. But let's take a step back and think about why the NAACP felt the need to issue this advisory in the first place. It's not like they're doing it for fun. They're doing it because they see something happening in Florida that's worrying. Governor DeSantis is trying to rewrite history. He's saying, hey, let's not talk about all that bad stuff that happened in the past. Let's just focus on the good stuff. But here's the problem. You can't just ignore the bad stuff and hope it goes away. That's not how it works. By erasing Black history from schools and blocking classes about African American studies, DeSantis is sending a message that Black people's experiences don't matter. He's saying that their struggles and their achievements aren't important enough to learn about, and that's not okay. History is messy. It's full of triumphs and tragedies, heroes and villains, but it's all part of who we are as a country. We can't just pick and choose which parts of history we want to remember. We have to take it all, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And here's something else to think about. When you erase Black history from the curriculum, you're also erasing the voices of Black people. You're silencing their stories and their experiences, and that's not fair. So, what can we do about all of this? Well, for starters, we can listen to what the NAACP is saying. We can take their advisory seriously and think twice before traveling to Florida. And we can speak up when we see injustice happening. We can also educate ourselves about Black history. We can read books, watch documentaries, and listen to the stories of Black people. Because the more we know about the past, the better equipped we'll be to create a more just and equitable future. And finally, we can support organizations like the NAACP and others who are fighting for racial justice, because it's going to take all of us working together to make sure that history doesn't repeat itself. Not now, not ever. Be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you are enjoying the content. Let's continue exploring the battle over who controls the past and how it impacts education in the state. Florida's struggle to teach Black history has become a battle over who controls the past. It's a fight that stretches back decades, and it's one that's deeply intertwined with the state's complex racial history. For many years, the stories of Black communities like Rosewood were hidden away, passed down quietly through generations, until finally, the survivors felt compelled to speak out. For 71 years, the survivors of Rosewood held on to their history, fearing retribution in their rural Central Florida communities. It was a painful legacy, marked by violence and injustice, but it was a story that needed to be told. With the passing of the last surviving witness in 1990, the families of Rosewood decided to break their silence. They spoke out about the horrors they had endured, the lynchings, the destruction of their town, and their voices became a rallying cry for justice. Their stories became the foundation for legislation that awarded the first reparations paid by a state in the nation's history to survivors of racial violence. They became the catalyst for the 1994 law requiring the teaching of Florida's Black history in K-12 schools. This law was a milestone, a recognition of the importance of Black history in shaping the identity of the state and the nation as a whole. But now, as Governor Ron DeSantis wages a political battle against what he calls the woke mob, He's aiming for the very heart of this law. He argues that certain instruction of Black history amounts to political indoctrination, and he's pushing policies that threaten to undo the progress that has been made. DeSantis defends himself by pointing to the 1994 law, claiming that Black history is required to be taught in Florida schools. But his actions tell a different story. Budget records show that the implementation of the law has been woefully inadequate, with resources for teaching Black history lacking and requests for additional funding falling on deaf ears. And then there's the issue of reparations, a central component of the Rosewood saga and a topic that should be included in any meaningful discussion of Black history. Yet, state officials have deemed discussions of reparations to be indoctrination, effectively shutting down any meaningful dialogue on the subject in Florida classrooms. It's a troubling trend, one that threatens to whitewash the state's history and silence the voices of those who have been marginalized for far too long. By refusing to acknowledge the full scope of Black history, the triumphs and the tragedies, the contributions and the injustices, Florida risks perpetuating the same cycles of inequality and erasure that have plagued the state for generations. But there is hope. Despite the challenges they face, educators and advocates are determined to continue the fight for inclusive and accurate education. They understand the importance of teaching Black history not as a political agenda, but as a vital part of understanding our shared past and building a more equitable future. Let's delve deeper into the challenges faced by Florida counties in implementing African American studies into their core curriculum. So, few Florida counties have African American studies integrated into their core curriculum, despite it being considered part of the K-12 educational framework. Shockingly, only 11 out of the state's 67 county school districts have developed comprehensive plans for providing this course, training teachers, and seamlessly integrating instruction into their required coursework. This stark reality is highlighted by the findings of the Education Commissioner's Task Force on African American Studies, established in 1995 to support the implementation of the law mandating Black history education. Bernadette Kelly Brown, an associate professor at Florida A&M University and a member of the task force, sheds light on the current state of affairs. She reveals that in most school districts, instruction on African American history is limited to Black History Month in February. Moreover, despite Florida's fourth-grade curriculum including a section on state history, there is no standard mandating the inclusion of African American history. This omission is glaring and perpetuates a cycle of erasure and ignorance surrounding the contributions and struggles of Black Americans. The reluctance to fully embrace African American history in Florida's educational system stems from the brutal and pervasive nature of the state's past. Marvin Dunn, a retired Navy officer and professor emeritus at Florida International University, who has extensively researched Florida's Black legacy, attests to the difficulty of confronting this history. He describes it as bloody and disturbing, highlighting the emotional weight it carries for both white and Black communities alike. Dunn's experiences underscore the complex dynamics at play. He recalls encounters with Black individuals, including descendants of lynching victims, who are reluctant to revisit the painful chapters of their history. For them, the trauma of the past is still raw, and the prospect of reliving it through education is daunting. This reluctance reflects the profound emotional impact of historical trauma and the challenges inherent in reckoning with it. Despite these challenges, the importance of incorporating African American studies into the core curriculum cannot be overstated. It's not just about acknowledging past injustices, it's about empowering future generations with a comprehensive understanding of our collective history. By providing students with a nuanced and inclusive education, we equip them with the tools to challenge systemic inequalities and build a more just society. Moreover, the failure to fully integrate African American studies into the curriculum perpetuates systemic disparities and perpetuates a whitewashed version of history. It sends a message to Black students that their experiences and contributions are secondary or even irrelevant. This erasure not only undermines the integrity of our educational system, but also perpetuates harmful stereotypes and perpetuates cycles of inequality. To address these issues, Florida must prioritize comprehensive and inclusive education. This includes investing in teacher training, developing culturally responsive curriculum materials, and fostering open dialogue about the complexities of our history. Only by confronting the past head-on and embracing the full breadth of our shared heritage can we hope to create a more equitable and inclusive future for all Floridians. In conclusion, the struggle to integrate African American studies into Florida's core curriculum reflects broader challenges surrounding education and historical consciousness. It's a reminder of the importance of confronting uncomfortable truths, even when they're difficult to face. By acknowledging and embracing our shared history, we pave the way for a more just and equitable society for future generations. Thanks for watching Disturbing Black History Florida Tried to Erase. Don't forget to hit that like button if you found this video informative. Share it with your friends and family to spread awareness, and make sure to subscribe for more eye-opening content like this. And don't forget to check out our other videos for more insights into history and social issues. Bye.